but I think we've got enough people here that we can start.
Cool.
I am here with Dan Harris, best-selling author, best-selling Substacker, host of the 10% Happier podcast. Dan, thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks for having me, Chris. It's great to be here.
I want to talk a lot about some of the very innovative stuff you're doing with live video. But maybe first, I imagine most people on the stream know who you are familiar with your work, familiar with your Substack. But for those who might, the slim minority that might be here because they're subscribed to my Substack, can you give us a little like who who are you? What do you work on? And
Yeah.
what's your Substack about?
So I spent many years as a TV anchorman. I was at an ABC News for 21 years, and um, probably the most memorable thing I did as a TV anchorman was have a Coke fueled panic attack on Good Morning America in 2004, and um, that horrible, humiliating event, which you can Google and see if you want, led me to meditation. And then 10 years after the panic attack in 2014, I wrote a book called 10% Happier, which is really my attempt to make meditation appealing to people like me who are secular, skeptical people, and to to basically point out that there's all this evidence that this practice that might be viewed with some suspicion by some of us actually has a lot of evidence behind it. And then that kind of swallowed my life, and I started a podcast called 10% Happier. I started a meditation app called 10% Happier that I'm now no longer a part of, which is what's brought me to Substack. And then a couple years ago, I retired from ABC News, and so this is what I do full time. Really, my goal, my job is the little somewhat glib line we use is like my job is to help people do their lives better, and there are just there's all this evidence from ancient science, ancient wisdom and modern science, that there are these small and sometimes large things you can do in the midst of your daily life that will improve it. And my job is to kind of disseminate that with some humor and succinctness.
Right. And what I'm hearing from you, tell me if I've got this right, is look, there is kind of a spiritual side to all of this. There is sort of like a mystical tradition and all that stuff, but that's not the only reason you should care about it. There's actually a lot of solid, sort of practical benefits to these practices.
Yeah, for me, this kind of morphed over time. I started out as a hardcore skeptic, and I still
Mm.
am essentially somebody who requires evidence. Um, but I'm a little bit more open minded about what you might call spiritual, and like there's a lot of devil in the details around like how you defining spirituality. I mean, for me personally, I think of it in a very grounded way, like anything that takes you out of what David Foster Wallace called the skull-sized kingdom,
Mm.
anything that gets you in touch with something larger than your ego, it can be considered spiritual. The tradition that I have really been trained in over the last 15 years is Theravada Buddhism, and within that tradition, there are metaphysical claims like rebirth and enlightenment, and I'm open to that, but I don't have any personal evidence, so I don't push that. What I do push is that there are these techniques from within that tradition and many others that now have been tested in laboratories, and so I want people to know about that.
Very cool. Well, I got to say the one line pitch you gave of help people do their lives better is the perfect double entendre for this live that we're doing right now. Because I wanted to ask you, you know, you've been using this feature that we're using right now, Substack Live. It's a new thing for us. It's something that we've developed relatively recently, and you have been one of the people that is using it not only very successfully, but in my view, very creatively. And I'd love to hear from you kind of like how are you thinking about it and what is sort of like the live piece of what you've been doing on Substack?
Well, as I mentioned earlier, I was involved with a meditation app for many years, and that's a whole story about how that broke up. But I sort of understand the meditation app business from the inside, and I
Mhm.
think there's a lot to it. I think they're amazing and have helped a lot of people. But the one thing that meditation apps don't do in a robust way is provide a sense of community. And again, to reference Buddhism, within the Dharma, which is just another way of saying Buddhism. There are really three main, to get very technical about it, they call it the three jewels. The Buddha, which is just the dude himself and as an avatar, as an example of the potential to upgrade your mind. The Dharma, which is the teachings of the Buddha, the technologies that he taught for, for training your mind. And the third was the Sangha, which is the community. The idea from the jump has been that this is not a solo endeavor, it's a team sport. And in our modern, lonely, individualistic culture, most people are meditating on their own, which is great. I'd rather have you meditating on your own than not meditating at all. But this has been designed, meditation has been designed from the jump to be done as a group. And so use it. And also there, just to say, there's a lot of modern science to show that if you're looking to form a habit, the HOV lane, the carpool lane, social support, to use the term that psychologists use, is incredibly powerful. So it's about providing what I think is the missing piece in most meditation technologies these days, which is an opportunity for people to do it together. And so this technology that you've come up with, the Substack Live, is incredibly helpful.
And so, what does a typical one of your lives look like?
I mean, it's not particularly. I mean, as somebody who comes out of television news, where I was traveling all over the planet, and like to do, interacting with lions and busting pedophiles and doing lots of crazy stuff. It's pretty low tech, but essentially it's 10 minutes of guided meditation. And then I take questions. And so, what we've been doing recently, for example, is so we're doing a series of live guided meditations, starting on Sunday, running through Wednesday, to help people deal with the tumult around Trump's inauguration. No matter where you stand, people have strong feelings, and so this is we're creating a place where people can come get a dose of sanity in the form of a meditation from me, and then ask questions. And one of the little benefits that we'll be providing to our paid subscribers is we'll create a chat very soon, where only paid subscribers can submit their questions in advance, and those will get preferential treatment. We do a mix of live events for paid subscribers and for everybody. So this inauguration stuff will be for everybody. We did a bunch of stuff around the election. We did a series we called Election Sanity that was free for everybody. And I also do a monthly paid subscriber only AMA, and I'm probably going to up the cadence on that to much, much more, because the response has been so good. And what we're seeing is that we get a certain amount of people who tune in live, but we get, you know, sometimes 10, 20, 30x that watching it asynchronously later.
That's so cool. Uh, One of the things I love about that is I think a lot of people have this idea, as we've been releasing video features on Substack, people think, oh man, that's going to be, you're going to go for like the quick hit dopamine, like fight video thing. That's sort of like, I think people have an idea that video as a medium is always this kind of like fast paced, lowest common denominator thing. And I'm sure, like, there are some rules about this, about if you're going to go on most streaming platforms, or I'm sure cable news is like this. You got to be like getting something new and something exciting. And then here you are opening up your live streams with 10 minutes of silent meditation, and not only is it not hurting the numbers, but it's like very successful. It tells me that this technology can be used for something quite different, at least, than a lot of people would have expected, I think.
Well, it's interesting about it. I mean, to not to be overly philosophical with you, but any technology can be used for good or for ill. And one of the things, not to be, now that I've been overly philosophical, I'll also be perhaps a little bit overly complimentary. But one of the amazing things about Substack is you're a combination, in my view. I don't know how, I might not be describing you the way you would describe yourself, but it's a combination of subscriber with social media in a way that I feels like as wholesome as those products and services can be in the world. And it feels
Right.
very much like a home for me, as somebody who, I'm on other social media platforms. But this feels like a place where I can like really be uh I don't know that I could get away with 10 minutes of meditation on Twitter.
Maybe not. You might get some angry trolls in the comments. Well, I really appreciate that. I mean, it matches how we see it. I mean, I sometimes tell people, look, other social media apps you use are built around a media format or they're built around an algorithm, and Substack is built around you, right? It's intended to be a place where you can do the work that you believe in, you can connect with your community, and where people showing up can, connect with the people, the ideas, the communities that matter to them, whether it's, short form text or 10-minute live video meditation or a 10,000 word essay. Like all of these things are different facets that people may care about. And the common thread that unites them is not, you know, what are we doing today? But it's like, who are we doing it with?
Yes. Yes. And I cannot state strongly enough that the community aspect of this is of all, I've only been on Substack for 4 months and like 4 days or something like that. Um,
Right?
the the
Going
the
well so
str-
far.
it's going reasonably well. Way better than I'm constitutionally a little bit pessimistic. It's going many orders of magnitude. It's better than I would have expected, and I think one of the strongest signals we're seeing is this desire for community. We live in, I said this earlier, really lonely, isolated times, and there's this real thirst, and I think people understand that one of the well springs of our modern misery, one of the major contributing factors to the epidemic of mental health issues we're seeing right now, is that we're not connecting with other human beings, which is how we're wired. So you add technology on top of a global pandemic, and you get
Yeah,
this unhappiness, and I think this potential to use technology to create community is very interesting.
I 100% agree with you. It's to your point earlier, technology can be used, it's just a tool, it's a means to an end. And it can divide us and make us lonely and separate us into our own little worlds, or it can connect us, or it can, you know, bring meaning into our lives, just depending on whether we wield it the right way. If you're open to it, I'd love to switch gears a little bit. I think at least some people, I titled this "The Secrets of Live Video" on Substack or something like that. I think there's probably a few people on here who might be Substackers themselves,
Yeah.
who are looking at some of the success you're having with this feature and wondering if you have any kind of practical tips. Are there ways that you're promoting this? Are there ways that you're thinking about the programming? I'd love to just kind of like hear a little bit about the nitty gritty of how you've made this work so well.
Sure. Just to say at a high level, everything I've been doing, and I should say we have been doing, because I'm not doing this alone, on Substack has been very experimental. And that actually kind of speaks for my whole business. I'm really, ever since I separated from the meditation app that I spent many years working on, just trying a bunch of stuff. To me, just going into Substack and of course many other areas with that sense of experimentation has created a lightness and I don't know if nimbleness is a word, but made us more nimble in a way that's, I think, been very helpful. So we're just trying stuff and seeing how it goes and really trying to pay very close attention to the feedback we're getting from our subscribers. On a nitty gritty level, I send out 3 emails every week at least, one on Monday, one on Wednesday, and the Wednesday emails are very short, um, and are super practical. They're just like, click this, and in 2 minutes, I'll give you something that will help you do your life better. To be, again, a little cute about it. And then on Friday, I send out just 3 things that I'm into right now: movies, books, TV shows, whatever. And we use those emails to promote upcoming live events. And we also use other social media platforms, including Instagram stories, to promote live events. And thus far, and we use notes right here on Substack. So thus far, that's really been what we've been doing.
So do you tell people like, "Hey, this is coming up today, tune in at this time," and just give them a little taste of it, or how do you promote on those platforms?
We so it really depends on the platform. On Substack, we're trying to give plenty of notice. Like, so today, we sent out an email to all of our subscribers saying that starting on Sunday, we will be doing Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, 4 days. of programming around the inauguration. So we gave some heads up, and we gave times so people can put it in their calendar. But by the way, on a functionality note, if you could create like Zoom has, so that you could put it in the calendar, I think that would really
Yeah, like
help.
a add to calendar.
Yes.
That's a great idea.
I think that would really help. So we do that, and then on Instagram, it's more like, and on Notes, it's more like, hey, this is happening right now. You should come check it out. I've had some internal dialogue around whether, um, if you're a Substacker and you've done a Substack Live, you know that you get the option to email all of your subscribers right when you're going to go live. I have a lot of fear around spamming people. So I have, and I think my team has a little less fear of that, and so I've had to be pushed. I think they don't view it as spam.
Yeah,
They view it as helpful, and so I've been, as often happens, dislodged from some of my positions, and so I've gotten a little bit more comfortable sending an email to all subscribers and just really hoping that they're not annoyed by it.
that makes total sense to me. I love all that. And I especially love the thing you said before about sort of the experimental attitude. Something that I find sometimes people start on Substack, they want to wait until they have every little thing figured out before they start. And it becomes almost like a project they're working on where like I have to write 10 things and I have to have my whole, vision kind of put together. And I just think it's such a mistake to do that because as soon as you get out into the world, you're going to start learning stuff. And if you're not able to adapt to those things, you're not going to probably be successful, to be honest. And so sometimes, I mean, somebody asked me the other day on Notes, like, what are your tips for starting on Substack? And my response was like, step one, start.
Yes,
That's
yes.
it.
I
It's like,
I really agree with that. I'm laughing a little bit because early on we had conversations. You guys were very generous and introduced us to somebody on your team, this guy named Austin, who was advising us on how to start. And we had a million neurotic, detail obsessed questions, and he was just like, "Dude, just do the thing. You will learn." And we had all these thoughts about things we needed to offer from the jump, and aspects of this, what you get behind the paywall. And his advice was pretty consistently like, just test it, you'll learn from your audience. And so I really plus one what you're saying, heartily.
that's awesome. Well, if you're open to it, I talked about this on Notes earlier today, and I had a couple off the wall audience questions. Are you open
Sure.
to me asking you a few things that people? And I'd love, by the way, to answer to if you have any questions or any thoughts or any feedback for me, I'd love to hear it too. Um, but one thing that came up was I think Bill Bishop asked, and I can't tell if he was asking this a little bit tongue in cheek, but I'd be interested to hear. I think you spoke about this a little bit earlier, but he asked, what have you been in a past life, if anything?
Probably in my past lives, I've been what I am in this life, like a neurotic half Jew who worried about stuff too much. I suspect that conditioning runs pretty deep for me. Um, and I don't know if there are past lives. I will say, and this is weird. This is weird for me. Uh, that the more time I've spent around Buddhism, and I've been kind of in the world for about 15 years, which is nothing compared to the really deep end of the pool
Sure.
teachers who I interview on my podcast a lot. But it's a reasonable chunk of my life. Uh, the idea, I don't know if I necessarily would make the claim for reincarnation, but for sure, and we know this through like modern research too, like the experiences of our ancestors are coursing through our veins now. We know that inherited trauma is a real thing. And there's this mind blowing study about that took mice and sprayed the smell of cherry blossoms into the mouse cage, and then gave them an electric shock, which is not that cool. But this was the experiment. And then those mice had kids, and when they sprayed the cherry blossom spray in, they got really stressed. So something in them, in their marrow, had the memory that they didn't experience. And so, whether reincarnation is real, I do over time for sure believe that, and again, it doesn't take a leap because there's evidence that we, when I think about the experiences of my parents and their parents, the stuff that they went through is echoing down my neuronal hallways today.
Very interesting. Nikita Petrov asks, "What do you fear most about psychedelics?"
Well, I have panic disorder, and so I fear a bad trip. And actually, like my most famous panic attack was on Good Morning America, but my first panic attack was on weed. When I was
Mm.
13 or 14, I had a thriving little weed business, and
So you've
I
always been an entrepreneur.
yes, yes, and I also made the signal error for a weed dealer, which is don't get high on your own supply, which I got high on my own supply quite a bit, and I had my first panic attacks smoking weed, and so I really worry about getting into a psychedelic experience where I can't escape. But I actually have, and again, this is based now on a growing evidence of data, some real faith and confidence and excitement about these medicines,
Mm.
and the amount of good they can do in the world. And like, just to be philosophical again with you, like we are at a juncture in human history where we have these ancient brains with very modern technology that could destroy the species. So we need to change these brains. And I think psychedelics have a lot of promise.
Very cool. Um, well, is there anything? Do you have any feedback? Do you have any suggestions for us? Maybe a way I could ask you this question is, what are your kind of like highest aspirations for what you're working on your Substack and in your creative projects in general? And what could we do to help you achieve those dreams?
I appreciate that. I'm laughing a little bit because off to my right here, or and left, are some of my colleagues,
Right.
Tony
They
Aguirre.
probably have 50 like feature requests of like make
Yes,
sure
they do.
we can do those over email. But I'd love to hear like your
I
aspirations.
I won't do the feature request. Although we do have them, but
I believe you.
Tony and DJ and Abby actually, like in some ways, are better at articulating the vision than I am. But I will do my best. I think at the core, like I'll go back to this glib little phrase of helping people do their lives better, or like the little tagline we've been using on Substack is self help for smart people. And as an overarching goal, I and we just want to be helpful on the planet, while of course creating a sustainable business. Um, and so we are just in a stance of experimenting toward what does that look like. My suspicion and our suspicion is that is going to be like the missing piece of meditation apps to date has been this community aspect, giving people um, access to me, access to great meditation teachers, the right features through you guys to talk to one another and create dialogue that is mutually supportive. So that's my thinking, and then also I think there's um, courses that we might create, like direct pedagogy, how to basic meditation, basic varieties of meditation, how to integrate self-compassion into your life, I'm very interested in the work area, so how to bring the best of modern psychology and ancient contemplative traditions to the modern workplace. So I think there's a lot of pedagogy and community we can do around that, but it's essentially to test and listen and grow slowly and systematically towards something that is maximally helpful.
That's awesome. And very on point for us. I mean, we'd love to help you in every aspect of that we can.
I will. I assure you, I will take you up on that more than you want me to.
Perfect. Um, awesome. Well, is there anything that we should have talked about that we haven't got a chance to cover, or anything you'd be interested to chat about?
What's the biggest challenge for you in your business?
What's the biggest challenge in our business? I'd say the one that I think about a lot and keeps me up at night right now is making something like we're adding all this power to Substack. We're adding all of these features. We're expanding, expanding it so that more and more people can come. So we've added this live feature. We've added these video features. These things make new things possible. We have a big influx right now of people coming from TikTok because there's the TikTok may get banned this week, and there's people that are coming and doing live streams that have historically been, like TikTok creators. And the big thing that I think we need to do is add a lot of power to Substack while keeping it sufficiently simple.
Mm.
And it's easy to say that, and that's the thing that's sort of like it's very hard to do where you want to have all of these capabilities, you want to be able to support all of these different creator archetypes and formats and like all of the creative expressive things that people want. But then as a consumer, like you just need an app that makes sense. And you open it up and you've got the things you want. And when you join a community, you get to feel a part of that community and you have that space. And so I see that as kind of like the primary like creative challenge that we have at Substack is creating all of this power, all of these magical lives that can turn into clips and turn into podcasts if you want them to, and all of the power of it, and then keeping it in a package that people can just hold in their hand and make sense to them.
That's really, I'm just going to say it back to you because I want to, it's good for me to understand because given that we're essentially now in business together, the, you have all of these people like me who have a million bespoke feature requests, and you feel really tempted to help us integrate these requests
Yes.
into the functionality that we have on offer. But if you do too much of that, you create a Rube Goldberg. You create an overly complicated offering.
Right. And I mean, we're not just tempted. This is what we want to do. We want to allow you to realize your creative vision. We want to give you the tools you need to run your business. Those are the things we must do. And then there's a constraint that is easy to forget, which is the thing that you actually want first and foremost before you want any of those wonderful features that I'm sure you'll email me about, is if this thing doesn't make sense to your customers, your subscribers, if they can't figure it out, if they don't open it and it's like simple for them, none of the other stuff matters. And so we have to make sure that we can add all of that power in a simple enough package that it still just kind
Hmm,
of like hangs together for people,
hmm.
um, which is sort of like the eternal and interesting to me challenge of making consumer products.
And how is the feedback you're getting on it? Because I know the app you had the desk. I was an early adopter of Substack. I followed Andrew Sullivan over, and so I've been around for a while. And it was for a long time was mostly just came to my inbox, or I could look at it on the open web. And so the app is, if memory serves, reasonably new within the context of the overall history of the company. How? What is the feedback you're getting? Is it elegant enough?
I would say, I mean, one thing that we've learned is that every time we've made major additions to Substack, um, some people fear change.
Mm,
And so every time we've added a functionality, there's some, especially sometimes even selectively, the people who love Substack the most, who've built their businesses, who feel like they're, or have these relationships, subscriptions they care about, they worry that if we add something new, is it going to break the thing that I love about the platform, right? If we add an app, is that going to mean that I'm not able to read my long form articles? Or if we add video functionality, does that mean that we're taking away from this other thing? And so I think every time we've made big changes to the platform, uh, people have been, I think, quite fairly nervous. Um, I would say so far, I think we've been able to bring people along, and usually what happens is on the other side, people really see the benefit. The app specifically, what's happened, people were kind of nervous. People were saying, "Oh, is this good for me? Is this eroding my relationship? What does this mean?" The app drives a tremendous amount of subscriber growth and money to people on the platform today, and that the fact that that thing is, as more people adopt it, it's a place where that people can retain, they can have this really slick experience of getting all your stuff, and it's a place where they can discover new people, and many new people can discover you. And so the underlying reason why we built this thing is it took a little while to get going, but it's starting to like really kick into gear now. And I think at least some people who were previously kind of worried or skeptical can now like see the benefit of that thing. Your question is kind of like, is the app simple enough right now? Is it as tight as it could be? My personal view on this is like, no. i'm I'm forever dissatisfied, and I think that there are things that we are working on that are actively designed to like make it simpler, to make it easier, to make it like your space within the app clearer and more branded, and just give you that wonderful feeling that Substack promises. At the same time, I should say that it is, even in its present form today, really working.
Mm,
We have a phenomenon that's happening right now is we're getting more new users than we've ever gotten before. And usually what happens when you get more new users is the quality of those users goes down, right? You get marginal new people. Some of them were people who were on the fence who weren't interested. And then, maybe they don't retain quite as well. Maybe they don't pay quite as much. We're having the reverse of that happen right
mm.
now. We're both getting more new people into Substack as a whole, and they're retaining better. They're sticking around, they're subscribing to more things, they're discovering things. And to me, that means that although we're not at the perfect endpoint of everything we want to build, that we're like definitely on the right track. This is a
Mm.
thing that's like getting more valuable for people and helping. Like the more it grows, the more it helps everyone grow, and that loop is kind of working.
Yeah, what's interesting. I have one other question I want to ask you, but uh,
Please.
uh, um, I'll just say from I followed, and you may not want to comment on it, but I followed one of your competitors was publicly kind of criticizing you guys recently and saying that a lot of the followers are of low value followers for creators, and to me, and I'm new to this, but to me, I view there's a big delta between the number of paying subscribers and the number of free subscribers for sure. But these free subscribers that are coming to me through Substack, that is a pool that is a pond from which I can fish for paying subscribers. And by the way, it's people that I can reach with helpful messages. So for me, it it does at least 4 months in seem to be a mousetrap that is working. Anyway, that's building up to a question, which is, who do you see as your customer primarily? Is it me as a content creator, or is it my subscribers who are your customers?
I really do think the only correct answer to this for Substack is both. um, like you are the sort of the primary customer, the people, like you're the people that we're convincing to come and build your business on Substack. When you we don't make money until you make money, and you're paying the bills. This is like we've tried to like align the incentives to work. But something that I've learned over the past 8 years of building Substack is your most important priority is, what is the experience my customers are having? Like, what are the experience of my subscribers? Is this thing is this working? Is this good? And we see that as part of the service we want to provide. Is not only are we giving you a place where you can run your business, but we're doing it in a way where that experience is going to be like largely, like the mechanics of it are largely taken care of, and your subscribers are there having a good experience. And the other piece of this that we've added over time that is now really working is the fact that a lot of what you get from Substack isn't just, like a email newsletter tool and a video hosting platform and a website builder. The fact that you're plugging into this network, and a lot of the growth that you get comes from people who are, for example, using the Substack app and then look up meditation and then discover one of your things and then fall in love and then coming home. And that fraction of the value that this thing makes, I think, like, you know for independent writers, creators, entrepreneurs, having the power of that network is a big piece of what Substack exists to bring into the world. There's a million different places where you can go to, like, host a website or publish a video. And the thing that makes it really work is when you have this, the both the benefits of independence and control combined with the power of
Yes.
an internet scale network.
Yeah. Yeah, thus far I can see that happening for us, and I would add, just to build on that and to go back a little bit to the question you asked earlier about like on a very granular tactical level, how do you do well on Substack, especially with these lives? I have found that working with fellow Substackers has been really helpful. So, I mentioned I'm doing a series of lives around the inauguration. Sharon McMahon and Van Jones will be participating in those lives with me. And I've done joint posts with Susan Kane, and I just got an email this morning from Elizabeth Gilbert who wants me to do. Said we'll do a thing. And so I actually think if you're looking to grow, partnering with these other amazing people on the platform is a great lever to pull.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much. This has been incredible. If anybody here is somehow here and has not already subscribed to Dan Harris's Substack, you should hit the button. There's a button in the live. You don't even have to go anywhere. It's right there. You can hit it right now, or you can look it up after. Is there anything else that people should know or look out for from you?
Just that we want the feedback, the real, like, we're reading all the comments, and we want, I and this team, we are obsessed with being useful. And this is it's there's an altruistic component, and there's also a, enlightened self-interest component around, we want to build a sustainable business, and we think the route to being useful and to building a sustainable business are the same route. And so we're really in this experimentation mode, and the feedback we get is, we are paying really close attention to that. So if you're giving us feedback, we appreciate it.
Here, here. Well, Dan Harris, thank you so much. This has been a privilege.
Thank you, Chris. Great to meet you. You'll be
Cheers.
getting emails from me.
I look forward to it.
Bye, man.